And welcome back to the Doug Karns program here on All Noise Radio. 267-495-4866 is our voicemail line. Make sure you can just call us at any time during the week and leave us a voicemail. And if it's good enough, we'll play it on the air and talk about it. You can also reach us by email at dougkarnsprogram@gmail.com or on our Facebook page. Just go to facebook.com/dougkarnsprogram. All right. So before we move on to serious stuff, we have to touch on Meghan McCain.
Another moron.
She's a winner. Let's just leave it at that.
And so's her dad.
Well, let's not go there.
No.
John McCain is a big liberal progressive that I do not want to talk about. Anyways, Meghan McCain she has a job at MSNBC, and let's just pay attention to her grammar. How about that?
Can write whatever they want. They're still in office. I have no problem with this type of thing being written if they were out of office. I think some small emoticon of privacy. And granted,
A small what?
Did she just say emoticon?
Say it again.
people can write whatever they want. They're still in office. I have no problem with this type of thing being written if they were out of office. I think some small emoticon of privacy.
Yep.
Wow.
She said emoticon.
A small smiley face.
Yeah.
Oh.
Because if you're wondering, emoticon is like those little smiley faces that you put in emails or text messages. So basically, she's talking about the Obamas here and how they deserve some privacy, but in a small emoticon way. So does she mean in a small smiley face way?
Small frowny face.
Maybe a frowny face because we frown upon of invading on people's privacy. So maybe it's a frowny face. It's definitely not a winky face.
Who knows what face she's thinking of, but it's small. That's all we know.
I'm no fan of the Obamas. I mean, in general, I'm a Republican. But I'm just saying they deserve some small emoticon. It's okay for her to...
Oh, my gosh, she says it again.
Twice. Wow.
She
really means it.
Yeah, she really means emoticon. Now, she goes on to say on her Twitter, she said this a couple days ago on MSNBC, and she clarified on Twitter. She says, thanks, everyone. Was talking quickly and said modicum instead of modicum this morning. Thanks for obsessing over my every waking word.
With an emoticon.
Yeah.
After.
It's not like she said it like once and messed it up. She said it twice, and she said emoticon.
Yeah, it's pretty clear.
So, the definition of modicum, as she says that's what she meant to say, is a small amount. So even if you take her by her word, she's saying they deserve a small amount of privacy.
Yeah. It's like PIN number. Personal identification number.
Yeah, exactly.
Small emoticon.
So not only are you saying it wrong, but then you're saying that you meant it another way, which means you're being redundant. You're not helping yourself, in any way, Megan.
Well, it's just so funny that they try to downplay it and kind of weasel their way out of it. But.
So basically, we really should leave it because she's talking about. We'll talk about this a little later in the show, but she's talking about here how a author came out and wrote about these outlandish parties that the White House has been throwing the last couple of years, like big Halloween parties and big costly parties with the taxpayers' money, and they're keeping them secret. And the White House came out this week and said, no, we didn't keep them secret, and then released the pictures right after they said that. So we'll talk about that in a little bit, but this is what she's talking about. Well, no, you're in the White House. You're in our building that we pay for, the White House. You're not in your own little house. Like, if you're in your private house, you should have all the privacy in the world.
Yeah.
But if you're throwing parties in the White House, then it should be public.
Yeah.
Especially when you're using our money. They're
supposed to be public servants, not, royalty.
Exactly. And speaking of royalty, Joe, let's talk a little bit about Obama and how he's kind of seizing power a little bit at a time here. And each president has been doing this.
I never saw it coming.
Whether it's who saw this coming? Whether it's Bush or Clinton, every president in his term has seized a little power here and there. And Obama actually has been seizing more than anybody else. And in one way is how he is able to bypass Congress to appoint people into the executive branch. So how it usually works by the Constitution, a president can't just hire anybody he wants and put anybody in the executive branch. They have to be approved by the Senate, by a majority. to, it's checks and balances saying, hey, you can't just hire whoever you want.
Yeah.
And President Obama has put in legislation between Obamacare and all these other bills that they passed in the stimulus package in the last couple of years, have put in place power-grabbing legislation for the president, the office of the president. So he can pretty much, he's starting to be able to do whatever he wants. So let's just roll ahead. He talks here, and this is kind of spooky, the way he kind of says how he wants to work without Congress. So let's roll ahead and play this.
It's wrong. And I refuse to take no for an answer.
So he refuses to take no for an answer. Now, as president in the Constitution, I'm pretty sure you're supposed to take no for an answer because you are not in the legislative branch. You are not you're not representing the people of the United States. You're representing them as a whole, but you know what I mean, Joe. You're not representing them as your local legislator. So he's only there to sign bills into law. He's not there to create bills. He's not there to... And this is where we kind of lost our way in this country, is that the president now comes up with like these plans, these bills, legislation himself, and then kind of passes it along to Congress. You're just supposed to sign it, whether it's constitutional money-wise or if it doesn't violate anybody's laws. That's what you're supposed to be there. You're the constitutional check for the legislative branch. And if it's not constitutional, you're supposed to veto it.
Well, he taught the Constitution for 10 years, so he should know this better than any of us.
Yeah, which we'll get to that audio in a second.
These are ideas that have support from Democrats. They have support from Republicans around the country, independents around the country. I want to work with Congress to get them done. But when Congress refuses to act, and as a result hurts our economy and puts our people at risk, then I have an obligation as president to do what I can without them.
So he can say, he just said he'll do what he has to without them. Now, does anybody else listening to us right now find that scary? I mean, that is spooky. You're becoming a dictator if you're starting to be able to do, even though this is a small thing, he's talking about appointing a new consumer protection guy in the executive branch. I don't think it's a small thing because under the executive branch, that consumer protection agency can now come up with their own laws, their own regulations.
Anything we consume.
To the average person, you can say, okay, it's a little small power grab, but when is it enough? Because this is exactly, and maybe, Joe, we'll talk about this next week because I still have to pick this book up about, it's called How to Kill 11 Million People. It basically explains how every dictator, every, communist, every, socialist, and, Marxist, how they were able to kill so many people. And it all comes down to lies. It all comes down to lies.
It's just little by little by little. It's not nothing obvious.
No, it's not. They tell you a little lie and they make you accept it because it's a tiny lie, it's a tiny issue, but then that issue's done, and then they move to another issue, another lie, and another issue, another lie, until the point where you accept all of it because it's a little bit. It's the same reason why they put the progressive income tax, while they take it out of your paycheck every week. Mm-hmm. Now, imagine an American citizen having to pay that income tax once every year. Like, say, April 15th came and they had to pay that tax.
Yeah.
There would be an outrage because you're paying thousands of dollars.
Yeah, exactly, yep.
But they knew, when Wilson came in, they knew if they take a little bit out of the paycheck every week,
if you break it down a little,
nobody's going to care about missing that $30, that $100 a week, because you're making, $500 a week. Mm-hmm. So it's their whole plan. It's like, make you accept it because it's a little bit. But really, they're taking thousands of dollars away from you every year. So imagine if you had to pay that once a year. Like, you got everything you made in a week. Say you make $10 an hour, you work for 40 hours, you get $400 straight that week, every week. But then at the end of the year, you had to pay that income tax, which would come to $1,000, $2,000. People would be outraged.
Yeah.
And because there was never an income tax in this country.
Yeah. Well, we were just talking about like how much you spend at Wawa, for example, a year.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
If you break that down per day, it's
only,
not that bad.
It's only $8 a day, right? Like we were talking about.
Over the whole year, it's
over
what,
the
$3,000.
Yeah. I mean, you're spending a lot, and you don't realize it because you're just spending a little bit each day. And it's the same process.
It's just how you think about it.
And they're all lies.
Yeah.
That's all the government. This is why our founders had said government is a necessary evil, because it's not the people in it, because there's a lot of good people in it, but it's just as a bureaucracy, it grows.
Yeah.
It grows to the point where it's just evil. It just does what it wants to do.
And they'll just twist it any way they can. It's like propaganda. They'll just twist it to make you feel like they're on your side.
Exactly right. And they will take the trust of the American people away. And because men are flawed. They want power. Mm-hmm. Average guys like you and me, Joe, we understand that, power corrupts. Like if we would ever make it big someday, making a lot of money, we would understand that and keep that in check. But there's some guys that don't keep that in check. There's some guys that crave more and more and more. And I hate to say it, but I think President Obama is one of them.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't think he's a bad dude personally. I think it's almost like the sense of power it gets to him.
Yeah, I don't think as a person he's probably not a bad guy, but like you said, his philosophy on how to run a country, it's just way off.
But I think he enjoys being able to do what he wants to do without Congress.
I guess.
I think every person would like that. I mean, when you become a supervisor or a boss at a job, it's I'm sure it's a nice feeling when you're able to say, "Hey, you go do that," because you don't have to do it anymore.
Yep.
You can you have the power to do what you want. And I think it's just an average human flaw that we crave the power. And this is why our founders made it so we follow laws, not men. Because they obviously saw with King George and other dictators around the world that when they have the power, they keep it.
They go
and
too
and
far
they
with
go
it.
too crazy
Yep.
with it. Exactly right. And to go back to the Constitution is a negative charter. It says what the government cannot do to you. And Obama and a lot of Democrat and liberals, they like to see it to what the government can do for you.
Yeah, like over the last 5 or 10 years, you've been seeing a lot more of that.
Yeah, what they're doing for you.
Yeah.
No, our founders saw it as, hey, you have the right to live your life and be as prosperous as you can without the government's help. The government's not there. The government, what the Constitution is supposed to do is supposed to stop the government from taking that prosperity away from you. Hence, taxing the rich more.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's what the Constitution's there for.
And then when they do something that goes against the Constitution, then they just try to take credibility away from it. Like
Exactly.
say, oh, it's too old.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
It just doesn't work anymore.
No, it's a dusty document.
Then if you get rid of that, then they can pretty much do whatever they want.
But we survived for 240 years, so who knows what we're talking about,
Yeah, I know.
All right, we'll be right back after this.